Hello, BookTube. Hello, friends. Welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth. I would like to share with you what I read in the month of June, but I have a phone appointment in 15 minutes, and I didn't want to wait until after that to get started, so my videos are never 15 minutes unless it's an announcement or something, so I'll have to stop this and pick back up when I'm done. But meanwhile, I wanted to go ahead and see how much of this I can get done before my phone call. So in the month of June, I did something that I just tagged just June because I was coming out of 4 months of, for me, intense readathons, because they were readathons that I hosted or co-hosted, and it was just a lot of focused reading, and I wanted to just have the freedom to read whatever I wanted and just enjoy that. And I did. Now, Monique, the ginger librarian, when she heard my idea for Just June, she came up with some prompts. And at first I was a little resistant because I said, no, I don't want anything structured. But then I looked at what she had, and it was really just comfort things with a little bit of exercise thrown in. So let me just tell you right off the bat, I did not accomplish to my satisfaction all of the exercise things, but I will continue to work on that because that's something I should be doing every month. The things I did not get done were to read while exercising and then read while walking uphill. For you, there was prompts, 2 prompts for J-U-N and E. J-U-N-E, yeah. Anyway, U was uphill, and I don't have a lot of hills here. I'm in flat central Florida, but I still thought, I can at least get out and walk, and I really didn't. Not in like any focused sort of way. And I did get out on Emily's elliptical. We have it on the back screened-in porch. I got on there for a few minutes while I was listening to either a book or a YouTube video, but I mean, little while, like 5 minutes. So not enough to really make a difference. But, if I'm being legalistic about it, I did do it, but I need to do better. So the other prompts were read something that brings you joy, which of course I did. And E was exercise, U was uphill or uplifting, and N was something new. I can't even think now. I'll try to put it right here. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I did it because I went back and I looked, and I did do everything except really the exercise stuff. So, let me tell you what I read. I finished a total, or I should say, I was trying to think how to word this. I added a total of 20 books to my read shelf on Goodreads. Well, actually, no, that's not correct, because one of them was a reread. So that was just, I put that I read it again. And the only reason I'm trying to word it that way is because 2 of the books were children's books. Well, last month in May, we read a lot of children's books, and that was fine. And the reason that I went ahead and added these 2 to my list is because they were carryovers from May. They did not come in from the library until it was too late to read them in May, but they are Dr. Seuss books. One of them was originally published under the name Theo, LeSieg, and it's called Wacky Wednesday, and it was just a fun, fantastical, typical Dr. Seuss type book, but it was illustrated by George Booth. And then this is a book by Dr. Seuss, but it was published by illustrated by Katie Kath, and it's called Come Over to My House. I had not heard of this one before, and it's just a cute little book, but it really is a multicultural book. It basically shows houses all over the world in a lot of different countries, and it was very enjoyable. I thought it was great, and I had not heard of it before. And the fact that it was illustrated by someone other than Dr. Seuss makes me think that it might have originally been published after he died, and it was just an idea that he had left and never brought to fruition. But no, I am wrong. It was originally published in 19 66. So there are books that were published in his lifetime that were illustrated by other people. I just wasn't sure which category that fell in. So anyway, we didn't get to these in May. And if you want to see all the Dr. Seuss books that we read this past May, I did a video with my daughter Emily. And I have since hauled another Dr. Seuss book that I found a few days after May was over. I don't know if you saw it, but it's a big Cat in the Hat dictionary. And I was like, oh man, I wish we could have found that in time to read that for May. But we haven't read it yet. At some point we will. Okay, so let me just go ahead then and segue into the middle grade books, one of which was the reread. This was for my read-along of the Penderwicks series, of which I have read all of, but I wanted to encourage all of you to read this, so I wanted to reread them, and we just made it a read-along. This is book 2, The Penderwicks on Gardam Street. I loved it just as much as I loved it the first time, and I had forgotten a lot of it, but I am now into book 3 for the second time and enjoying it as well. So if you have not ever read the Penderwicks and you want to join in, I would encourage you to pick up the first book, which is called The Penderwicks. It's got a long subtitle, something about rabbits and an interesting boy, but anyway, if you just look up the Penderwicks book 1, you'll find it, and I want to encourage you to read it. I have some discussion threads on my Goodreads group, which is Lizzie Faye's Comfy Corner. It is always linked in the description below, at least in my more recent videos. I used to list it sporadically, but now I have a default of just all the things, and so at the bottom of every video, except for live streams, it should be there. Then this was really a just June, because just for fun, I picked this up. It wasn't for anything other than the fact that I had finished the Charlie Joe Jackson series by Tommy Greenwald for my Serious About Series challenge, and I realized that there were some companion books. I had read one of them, Jack Strong Takes a Stand. It was a Sunshine State book a few years ago, but I had not read this one. This is called Katie Friedman Gives Up Texting, and then there's one more companion book, something about Pete Milano, and I haven't read it yet. I'll probably get to it before the end of the year, just so I can, you know, polish off that whole Charlie Joe Jackson world. But this was actually really good. It's about a girl who decides that she is going to give up texting. It comes about because she accidentally sends a text to the wrong person, and it's something that she would not have wanted that other person to see. And, you know, I'm sure we've all done that, because when if you're texting 2 or 3 people at once, whatever your last person that texted you is what's on your screen, but maybe you get a notification that someone else has texted you, and you go to answer them, but you don't actually switch back to them, and it ends up going to the wrong person. Thankfully, I don't think I've ever said anything, horrible that's gone to another person. But I can certainly see how that could happen. A mistake like that can happen, because I have made that mistake. One time, I even, this is crazy, I sent a random text message to like 3 different people. Well, okay, it wasn't a random message. I was trying to send it to my sister-in-law. I was going to pick up her she has a cornhole set, and they wanted to borrow it for church. So I was texting her that I was on my way to pick up the cornhole. And for some ridiculous reason, my thumbs and my phone made a group text of the mom of one of Katie's really good friends, who I know, but I wouldn't just send her a crazy text, a spam like someone that had spammed me, and then someone else, I can't even think. But anyway, so this message, and I think then it actually did go to my sister-in-law. So this message that said I'm coming over to pick up the cornhole went to like all these people. And so my friend's mom texted back. She's like, what? And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. She goes, oh, that's fine. And then she did that whole, is that Beavis and Butthead, Cornholio or something? So she texted, I think actually maybe she texted that first. And I was like, what? So, oh my goodness. It's crazy. But I related to that because, to this book because of that. Anyway, it's just a good middle grade book about kids who learn to talk to each other and not on text messages. Basically, several kids decide to give up their phones for a week. And And actually, the funny thing is that one of the mothers had a bigger problem with it than her son did, because this was like a helicopter parent who always wanted to be texting him like every 10 minutes. And he was actually relieved that he didn't have his phone and that his mother was not constantly, looking over his shoulder. So anyway, fun book. You don't have to read Charlie Joe Jackson to read this. Charlie Joe Jackson is a character in the book, and I think you appreciate his character more when you've read at least the first one of his books, because he's hilarious and just a mess. But anyway, I enjoyed it a lot. Now, I read another middle grade book that I did not enjoy a lot. I had read this before, but Elizabeth Tyree is leading a children's classics book club, and this was the first pick. For July, we're reading Old Yeller, if you want to join in. And if you can't get a copy, for the benefit of those who can't get a copy, like in other countries and stuff, she is actually reading it like 1 or 2 chapters at a time on her YouTube videos. But for those of us here in the States, I think pretty much we can find a copy in the library. It's on Hoopla on audio. So anyway, that's Old Yeller. Now this, Stuart Little. None of us really enjoyed this. I kind of remembered it. I had listened to it on audio several years ago, and I looked back and I had rated it 3 stars, and that rating still stands. It's whimsical, it's cute, but it's weird. And there's things about it that just make no sense. There's contradictory things. And if you've never read it, I would encourage you to pick it up just to see what you think about it. But it's not long, and I'm glad that I reread it, but it is a strange book. So my phone call is coming in. I will be back in just a few minutes. I realized that I didn't do a summary at the beginning, and at this point, I'll do it at the end. But let me go ahead and go into the next category, which is mysteries or cozy mysteries, because I don't have a physical copy of one of them. And if I'm not right here looking at it, I tend to forget. So while I'm thinking about it, let's just do the mysteries. And I'll put a picture right here. This is book 4 of the Granny Read Mysteries by G.A. McKevett. The Granny Read Mysteries are a spin-off of the Savannah Read Mysteries, and they are a prequel series to the Savannah Read series. Savannah in this series is a young girl. She's the oldest of 8 grandchildren of Granny Read. Hang on 1 minute. I have a dog that's eating cat food, and he shouldn't be. He snuck right up here to the cat bowl and was just crunching away. It was Bob, not Louie. Bob is the family dog, or my husband's dog. Anyway, Louie, Katie's dog, was being very good, laying right here. Louie tends to be the most rambunctious, but when it comes to the big things, he sometimes behaves better. Anyway, so I was I was talking about Granny Read. So Granny Read is the grandmother of 8 children, and she is raising them because her son is an over-the-road trucker, and his wife is, I believe, in prison, and has never been, I think, for maybe drug use. So she is basically raising her grandchildren. And I really have enjoyed this series. In fact, I would say I enjoyed this one, book 4, more than any of them. It had a great ending, and it does have that trope of the law enforcement being the love interest. And even though Granny is probably in her early 60s, you can still have a romance, but it's very sweet, and I just really enjoy it. So if you have not ever picked up that series, I would encourage you to. You do not have to read the Savannah Read Mysteries in order to read the Granny Read Mysteries. A lot of reads in that sentence, but I have not. I've been collecting the Savannah Read Mysteries, but I still need books 1 and 2 in my collection before I will start reading those. Anyway, I enjoyed it very, very much. So then the other 2 are, the next one is Death Threads by Elizabeth Lynn Casey. This is book 2 in the Southern Sewing Circle Mysteries. My sister turned me onto this series several years ago. It took me forever to get the first one read, and now it's taken me forever to get the second one read. And even after I started it at the end of March, I didn't pick it back up in April or May. finally, I think I started it over at the beginning of June because I was barely even in, out of chapter 1. I very much enjoyed it. I definitely am looking forward to continuing the series. And I've said this before, the problem is it's not on audio. I can zip through some books if they're on audio, and I just have a hard time getting to books that I have to read in print. I'm doing better. I read several print books in the month of June, and I'm going to be sharing them with you. And I'm working on several right now for the month of July. But it's just harder for me to get to print books. Anyway, this is about a young librarian who is a transplant into the South from the North. And in the first book, she has a hard time just fitting in with the Southern culture. One of the ladies in the Southern Sewing Circle, or in the town sewing circle, takes her under her wing and begins to educate her in the ways of, being a Southern young lady. And that lady is pretty funny in and of herself. But the characters, they really grow on you. They can be hateful at times. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. They can do some mean things. But the series overall, I have very much enjoyed. And her love interest in this book is not law enforcement. It is a school teacher. So yay for that. And I would recommend it. It's a 12-book series. Now, Elizabeth Lynn Casey, you may know, is Laura Bradford. She has written other series under the Laura Bradford name, like the Amish Mysteries and the Emergency Dessert Squad. I have not read any of those, but I definitely want to. But meanwhile, I want to keep on reading this one, although I may not read any more in this series this year because I'm really needing to pick back up with the ABC challenge that the Killing Time with Cozies group is doing this year. And I said I was going to go in order. Well, this starts with D. So I am only 4 books in. And I've got a long way to go. I think a few of my books are audio, but most of the ones I picked are print books. It may take me 2 years to get the whole ABC list done, and that's fine. But it is motivating me to get some of these books read that I need to read in print. So that's great. And then the last cozy mystery I read, I actually did listen to this one. This is on my Serious About Series list. It's the third in a trilogy, and I reread the first one and then read the second one, or listened to both of those in April for the Amish in April readathon, and I didn't get to this one, but now I have finished it. This is Material Witness by Vannetta Chapman. This is a Christian cozy mystery that has murder in it, and it's very lightly faith-based, but it's interesting because a lot of the Christian cozies that I have read are just so light that they don't even have a murder. They have other crime and other things going on, but no murder. This series does include a murder, or at least a death, and it's very good. I have enjoyed it a lot. My sister is also the one who turned me on to this series, and she sent me all the copies after she finished reading them. In fact, Charlotte, if you want these back now that I'm done, I have a feeling this might be a series that she may want to reread. So I'm more than happy to bring those back to you, or mail them back to you, or whatever. All right, I only had one nonfiction book, and it was a book out of my last TBR jar draw, which was quite a while ago. I thought I only had this one and one more, but I actually have 2 more besides this one, or no, 3. Yeah, so I have more than I thought I did. I think it's taken me a lot longer with this batch because I wasn't really excited about most of them. I went ahead and I did finish this, although I didn't love it. This is called Marriage Secrets by Rosen. And what I didn't love about this is that it kind of read like a Cosmopolitan magazine article, really. And it felt a little more like the author was trying to teach us manipulations rather than just good, solid advice. Now, you could glean some advice from the things, but the way it was presented in, secrets just seemed a little bit manipulative to me. I did later, after I'd already read most of the book, I happened to look back here at the author bio. She does write for magazines, so it's no wonder that I thought that. Anyway, this is quite an old book. I want to say this was published in the 80s, no, 90s. So copyright 1993. Anyway, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And the other thing too is that my preference for any kind of marriage advice, I prefer for it to come from a Christian source. This is definitely not a Christian source, and it's very secular. And like I said, it reads kind of like a Cosmopolitan article, of which I have not read a lot of. But back in the day, I picked up one every once in a while. If one of my college roommates had one laying around, I would pick it up. But it's not my taste. So anyway, I will probably be passing this along. Then I actually did listen to 2 Westerns. Now, I said I wasn't going to do any readathons, but Steve Donahue and a few other people were hosting something called June on the Range. And I have had a few Zane Grey Westerns in my Overdrive wish list for a while now. And I have had one on my shelf that was my dad's book. And this was originally published in the early 1900s. He did not date here when he got this book, but he did write in it PFC Charles R. Jones. And PFC stands for Private First Class, which is his military rank in World War II. So even though he was not career military, he left the Marines after World War II, I don't know that he would have continued to address himself as PFC. So he may have gotten this book while he was in World War II for, something to read while he was in the war. It's very possible. So he had 3 Zane Grey books, and I have 2 siblings, so we each took one. And now that I have read this one, I need to contact my brother and sister and say, hey, I want to trade now. Let me read one of the others. But actually, I didn't read this copy. It was on audio on Overdrive. When I first found a few other Zane Grey books on Overdrive, this one was not there, but it is there now. So I was able to listen to it, which I was glad of, because I didn't really want to sit with this and read it page by page. It's getting very brittle. But I did, after listening to the first couple of chapters, I did go back and read part of the first chapter of this, because I was having a hard time following what was happening. And so by sitting down with the book and reading it with my eyes, at least the beginning, it gives me a better handle on what's happening. And I never could really determine if this was a biographical book based on fact, or if it was a novelization based on a real human being, or if it was just made up. But it's written from the perspective of Zane Grey going on an adventure with this man who he has named the last of the Plainsmen, and just accompanying him on his adventures. So I don't know. Maybe if you guys have ever read this or read any Zane Grey, do you know? I have no idea. But it was enjoyable, but I didn't love it. It read a little more like fact than fiction, and I didn't love it. It was a little hard to follow, and it was different adventures within this one big adventure. So, I mean, one event didn't necessarily segue that well into the next event, and it didn't really have that big of a plot as far as I could tell. It was just a series of events within this one big adventure. So then another one that I'm going to count for June on the Range is actually a Christian romance that is set in Montana. This is the first book in the Big Sky Dreams trilogy by Laurie Wick, and it's called Cassidy. I have the other 2 on my shelf that I've been wanting to get to, so I'm going to be listening to those before the end of the year, so I could check that series off my list. I don't think I put it on my Serious About series, but it is going to be kind of part of my bookshelf binge project. That's not even what I called it, but binge your bookshelf project, where I said at the beginning of the year that I was going to look at my bookshelves and see the books that I could get on audio and try to get through those as quickly as possible so that I can clear those off my shelves and make some room. And that is what I'm accomplishing with this. And then by the same author, I also listened to this standalone, The Princess by Laurie Wick. And this is a contemporary royalty story. I really didn't know what to expect from this. I thought maybe it would be historical since a lot of her things are historical, but it wasn't. And it's about a royal family in a fictitious country, and the prince is widowed, but he needs to remarry by a certain age, and that age is coming quickly. So he asked his parents to help him. He said, I'm not in a place mentally and emotionally that I can look for my own wife. So if you will just arrange something and, make sure they know that this is really just a marriage of convenience, then I'll be okay with that. And so that's what they did. And it was very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I had heard good things about it, and I very much enjoyed it. And then one more romance that I was so happy to listen to. I did not know that I was going to be able to find this on audio, and I found it on Scribd. This is I think it's the latest in the Calder brand series, which is a spinoff series of the Calder saga by Janet Dailey. And this is Calder Grit. I read the first one, Calder Brand, last year. I had to read it in print because I couldn't find it on audio. And I was on Hoopla just the last couple of days of the month, and I thought, I'm going to search one more time. Well, lo and behold, Calder Brand was on audio, but not Calder Grit. And I thought, okay, that means there's hope. So I quickly went over to Scribd, because sometimes if Hoopla only has a part of a series, Scribd will have the whole thing. And they did. They had it. So I listened to this, I think, on the last day of the month, and I was so excited. Now, I didn't love the book. It was okay. I liked it as much as the first one. But here's my problem with a few books that I have read by Janet Dailey. She uses rape in her storylines, and then sometimes the way she brings it about, I just don't like how it's dealt with. And that was a case here. So if that's a trigger for you, a rape or someone being taken advantage of, then you would want to stay away from this book. There was not, that was not an issue in Calder Brand, but it was in this book. And really the only other time that it was an issue for me was in the very first Calder book that was published. Now, I can't even remember which one that was, because now if you look at the list, they're in chronological order rather than publication order. So you would have to look at which one was the first one published. But there was a statutory rape at the beginning of that book. Then this couple ends up staying together and becoming the patriarchs of, matriarch and patriarch of the whole series. But I just did not like how it started. I just didn't. So just know that is something that Janet Dailey has used in books. Now, this book and its predecessor have both been published since her death. She passed away, I think, in 2013, but I believe, as I understand it, she had written ideas for books and, continuing books that her family is publishing in her name. And so anyway, it's something she did as a thing, when she was alive, and it still happened, it happened again in this book, and I didn't like it. I'm just saying. All right. I did listen to both of my round 6 BookTube spin books. Here they are right here. The Keeper of Lost Things did not live up to its cover. I did not enjoy it really very much. It wasn't horrible, but it had a lot of foul language. And, a book this pretty should not have ugly words. Don't you think? Anyway. And then the one I thought I would not like was actually pretty interesting. It was unique. It was about an unborn fetus who is listening to a crime being planned. That's all I'm going to say. There was hardly any foul language. I guess the author feels like that an unborn fetus doesn't swear, and that's a good thing. So he kept him innocent to an extent, but it was interesting, very, very unique. And then I had 4 books for book club. The 2 for June, actually I can't even remember which is which. But I read ahead, so I got my 2 read for June. I listened to them, and then I went ahead and listened to my July books. So I am ahead of the game. So now in July, I'm going to listen to the books for August and try to stay ahead for the rest of the year. So for my mystery book club, we read The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell. I did not care that much for it. There was not very many likable characters that I could stand behind, really, and again, foul language, I just wasn't a fan. The Dutch House is what we read for my regular literary book club. I didn't love this, but it was okay. I wasn't excited about it, but I listened to it on audio, and it's narrated by Tom Hanks, so you can't go wrong with that. And for that reason, that was a redeeming factor of it. Then for July, for my mystery book club, we are reading a thriller, The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This was okay. I liked it better than The Silent Patient. It wasn't bad. He does use some foul language, but it had a really interesting twist. He is good at bringing out the surprise twist. Because, I knew that I had read The Silent Patient, and so as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, okay, what is he possibly going to do? And then, whoa, what? So, yeah. Yeah. Then I read my first Jodi Picoult book, Wish You Were Here. This is about the pandemic. It's a little soon for that, but, it was okay. Again, with the foul language, I didn't love that, but I thought it was interesting. I think I still only gave it, I rated it 3 stars. I didn't love it, but it was an interesting look at the pandemic. One thing I thought was interesting, though, is that she says in the author notes that she really, up to and through writing this, I think, she really didn't go anywhere. And I'm thinking, well, how does she know what it's like out there? But she did do some research. She talked to people, interviewed people, and all of that. So, it was okay. And then this is actually what I listened to on the last day of the month, I think. I have had, this is another one of my Just June. I have been seeing this on my Scribd wish list or my saved list for a long time now. This was recommended to me by our children's librarian, and I really did enjoy this. This is Dry by Neil Shusterman. And Jared Shusterman, who I think is his son. So this is a dystopian book about a world where the water is very limited. And in this one area of California, it gets cut off completely. So it's the story of how this family survives. And I'll leave it at that. So that is it. That is what I read in the month of June. Let me know if you have read any of these. Let's chat in the comments if you want to read any of these. And let's just chat. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.